What's up, friends? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. Today's video is going to be my review of the new Isamaya Beauty Wildstar collection. I have the eyeshadow palette, one of the lipsticks, and the mascara. I'm going to be testing out all of these products for you guys today, and we're going to be doing 3 looks. So if you want to hear my completely honest review, then keep watching. And if this happens to be your first time here, then welcome. My name is Sophia, and this is my channel that focuses on all things beauty and luxury. Every single week, I upload new content on new beauty releases. I do favorites videos, roundup videos, tag videos, and I also like to do a little bit of luxury fashion and lifestyle. So if that sounds of interest to you, then you're in the right place, my friend. Hit that subscribe button to join our fam, because we have a lot of fun here on this channel, and you can also click that notification bell to hear about every time I upload a new video. If you like this video, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. And as always, I'll be linking anything that is on my face today and all the products that I mentioned in this video in that description box down below. Whew, okay, party people, let's get into this review. I'm excited to show you these products today. This collection took a little while to get to me. It was available for pre-order, I believe, at some point in November. I pre-ordered it the day that it was available, but it said it wasn't going to ship to me until about December 23rd, and that is around the time when I received it. I was away for Christmas visiting family during that time, so as soon as I got back, I was able to put these products to the test. I'm excited to show them to you. Haven't really seen that many reviews of these products so far, so hopefully we can have some fun today. I want to give you guys a little bit of background about this collection. First up, if you have not heard of Isamaya, friends, she is the mind, the brains, the makeup artist that is behind this brand. She is a pretty well-known makeup artist at this point. She's done a lot of work for brands like Burberry Beauty, Byredo Beauty, and then earlier this year, she launched Isamaya Beauty. This is the second collection that she has done so far. The first one she launched, I want to say back in maybe September. It was kind of like a fall collection release, and that collection was called the Industrial Collection. I did do a kind of like a Q&A video demoing all those products, just kind of trying them on for fun. This video though, this time I was on top of things, and I am going to be doing kind of like a proper review, doing multiple looks, etc. One more quick note about Isamaya Beauty. If you are not familiar, she's going to be launching collections seasonally, so probably about 3 to 4 a year if I were to guess. Like I said, this is the second one she's done so far, and all of the releases are limited edition. So once they sort of sell out, they're probably going to be gone for good. I do not know if she's going to be recycling certain formulas, recycling certain colors or tones or anything like that. So just kind of like a word of caution out there. If this is something that you are eyeing, you probably want to be picking it up within the next month or two, because I think as soon as they sell out, they are not going to be available again. So they say. You can still get the Industrial Collection, by the way, if you guys are interested in it. I think all of the products are still available on the Isamaya Beauty website, and I also know that Selfridges typically sells these collections as well. Now, Isamaya French is an incredibly creative makeup artist. She does a lot of cinematic work. She just has such a creative mind, and every single collection that she does has a really cool like story, inspiration, or vibe behind it. The Industrial Collection was sort of like gritty, grungy, industrial. There was like a lot of leather. Well, this collection is called Wildstar. I guess the best way for me to describe it is it's kind of like old Western, but make it Hollywood. Make it super glitzy and glamorous and kind of over the top. The packaging is very kitschy. Some would say tacky. And I want to read you a little bit about this collection from the Isamaya Beauty website. So on their website it says, "In the hazy frontier where heat lingers after the twilight dims, where wills are tested and few survive, comes our gold standard collection, Wildstar. Spurred by the love of kitchen glamour, our gilded pieces glisten with color and seduce with a rich suede texture. Wildstar embodies glitz and imagination. It is the freedom of our own cowboy country." So that's how they describe this collection. I think that that is super fun. I never would have come up with something like that myself. And as you can see from the packaging on the eyeshadow palette, it is very kitschy and like borderline tacky. I feel like a lot of you guys, you're either going to completely love this collection, or you're going to be like, that is the tackiest thing I've ever seen. And you know what? I think that makes it even more fun. Now that we have that background out of the way, let's dive into each of the products. As I mentioned, I have the eyeshadow palette, I have one of the lipsticks, and I also have the mascara. There is also a highlighter balm stick that was a part of this collection, and there were also some suede lip liners. I did not pick up those products just because I was kind of limiting myself. These products are pretty expensive, and they're pretty expensive because each collection is just so custom, including the components and all of the formulas. So I limited myself to these 3 products. So let's dive in, starting off with the eyeshadow palette. This is the Wildstar Pressed Pigment palette. This comes with 12 shades. It retails for $105, so it is on that luxury pricing side of the spectrum. It is made in Italy and it has a 12-month shelf life. On the Isamaya Beauty website, it says here, creamy colors with a skin-soothing feel, glass-like shine and wet foil effect, supreme pigment payoff, and maximum glide. And I'll be talking a little bit more later in this review of whether or not I feel like this palette lives up to these claims. But I do just want to show you guys some close-ups of the palette. I also want to show you the packaging. It's pretty substantial. It's not metal, it is plastic, so it kind of has that plasticky feel. But like I said, it does feel very substantial. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know, maybe like an old chewing tobacco tin, like something that someone would put chewing tobacco in, maybe a little bit big, but it's got this really cool stallion on the front. We've got some rhinestones, we've got the big horseshoe, and to my knowledge as well, you can take the pressed pigments out. You can just pop out sort of this part of the palette, and then you can reuse this packaging to, I don't know, put some hair ties in, some bobby pins. You could keep it in your car to put little random things in. You can put tchotchkes in it. You could turn it into a jewelry box. So at the end of the day, after you're done with these eyeshadows, you can pop them out and you can reuse this really cool component. A lot of you guys on social media were telling me that you do not like the layout of this palette and that you really didn't like the packaging. You thought the packaging was super tacky. And you also thought that the layout of the shades here kind of reminded you of like a Tarte palette or an Estee Lauder palette. Personally, for me, it doesn't really bother me. I know some people are a little bit bothered by like the circular layout of these, but I don't really care. To me, it makes it even more, I don't know, cool and different. I don't have that many palettes that are shaped like this. Now let's get into some swatches of these beautiful shadows. If you are new here, I don't often swatch the colors in order. I usually swatch them either by finish or color family. So the first set of swatches that I'm going to be showing you are all of the matte shades, just to get us started. As you can see here, all of the mattes, they're extremely neutral. We have a really nice gradient of shades. These are the very basic building blocks of any look. We're not getting any colored mattes, and we haven't seen that from Isamaya yet. So all of the mattes in here, they're pretty much very basic neutral shades. Next, I want to show you guys some swatches of the shimmer shades, starting off with those that are in more of like the neutral category, I guess you can say. We've got some beautiful golds. We also have a nice chocolate brown, so there is a nice array of neutral shimmers. Now, when you look at this palette, you might also notice there are some pops of color. It's a neutral palette with pops of color. So I also want to show you guys these shades that are in kind of like the pinky family. We have kind of like a soft duochrome pink. We also have kind of like a brighter, more intense fuchsia. And finally, the last 2 swatches are the purple and blues in the palette. These are probably some of the ones that stand out the most when I look at the palette because they are the ones that are the least neutral. And you probably noticed when taking a look at some of those swatches, some of the shades in here are kind of duochrome, which is really, really nice. Like for example, this one right here, it's not just a pink, it's like a pink with gold glitter. We also have the white one here, which is very much multi-dimensional. You can see it's kind of like mixing white and gold glitter together, which I think really adds to kind of the sparkle and the glitz and the glamour of this palette. I will say though, although there are a lot of glittery shades in this palette, not all of the shimmers are the same texture. I want to show you guys a comparison of swatches right here, kind of going from like the most matte to the most glittery. Not every single shimmer shade is created equal. We have some that are a little bit softer than others, some that are a little bit more of like a smoother, creamier texture. And then you have the ones like the ones that I just swatched for you on my hand, which are a little bit like softer to the touch and very, very glittery. Before I get into the demos, I am going to be talking about the other 2 products. So next up, we're going to be talking about the lipsticks. These are the Luckykiss Diamond Glow Lipsticks. These retail for a whopping $50 each. There are 3 shades. They are also made in Italy and they are vegan and cruelty free. The color that I got is called the Buck, so that's the one I'm going to be swatching for you today. And on the Isamaya website, these are described as wild, glittering, and free. Luckykiss wraps lips in hydrating shine and a dazzling glow, a lipstick inspired by the sun melting over the horizon. With its dusk hues and incandescent glint, infused with vitamin E to drench lips in hydration, each of the 3 shades feature a super slick formula featuring a 2-tone pearlescent finish that changes colors from every angle. This is actually my favorite packaging out of all of the things that come in the collection. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's because this is something that I can take with me in my purse. It has this adorable little horse on the top. Once again, you're either gonna think this is the cutest, coolest, like wackiest thing ever, or you think it's ugly and tacky, but I think that this is super fun. I feel like it's a conversation starter. You also have kind of like the glitziness like around the cap here. You've got the rhinestones on top on the horse. And then I want to show you guys some close-ups of the lipstick bullet. When I first opened this up, I was like, damn, it's straight up glitter. It just looks like absolute gold glittery shine. I was very scared about this. I will say it is a little bit of like an overspray on top that once you swipe it onto your lips, it doesn't look that intimidating, but this is indeed a metallic lipstick, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the formula and how it applies when we get into the demo. Next up, we have the Lash Lasso Lash Wrap Mascara. Isn't that a mouthful? This retails for $39, and it says lush volume and sensual curl. Lash Lasso is a thickening curling mascara that adds instant drama in just one sweep. Once again, I will show you guys some close-ups of the packaging. It's very similar to the lipstick. It's got the little horsey on top, and I will also show you some close-ups of the brush. It's a little bit hard to get close-ups of mascara wands with my camera. For whatever reason, it never really wants to focus on it, but I want to just sort of describe to you what this brush looks like. This one is much thicker than the one from the industrial collection. That one is much more of like a long wearing, almost tubing lengthening mascara, whereas this one is supposed to be for volume. It has a much bushier, thicker brush. I think it would be a little bit hard to see on camera, but all of the bristles kind of wrap around the wand in a little bit of like a spiral effect, so that when you go and you brush it through your lashes, all of those bristles really cling to the lash and coat it in one sweep. You guys are gonna see during the demo in just a second. All right, friends, let's get into these demos. I have 3 looks that I'm gonna do for you today. Each of them is a little bit different because I wanted to show you how you can do different things with this palette. If you look at the promo video and a lot of the photos that Isamaya did with this palette, her looks are very theatrical and extreme. You know, like we're talking glitter all the way up to the eyebrow. And while I think it looks fabulous on her, I do want to do some very wearable looks for you all today. There's not going to be any fake lashes involved. These are going to be things that I think that you can do at home. And so the first look that I'm going to be doing is going to be a kind of like a neutral soft glam. So let's dive in. First up, I started the look by diving into the shade Divot. That is that mid-tone brown, and just kind of brushing that into the crease. I think that these mattes, they blend pretty well. I will say I would recommend kind of maybe powdering your eye just a little bit. I think that's the best way to get these mattes to go on smooth. There's also a nude shade in this palette that you can use to kind of prime your lids a little bit, but that's what I have felt just in testing this palette a couple of times now works the best for me. Next, I dipped into the soft chocolate brown shimmer, which is called Chaps, and I just brushed that onto the outer lid, kind of just building up a little bit of a base here. This is a shimmer shade, but it's a lot softer, has a little bit of like gold sparkle in it, but it's not glittery like some of the other shimmer shades that are in this palette. Next, I dipped into the shade Saddle, and I applied this all over the lid. This one has some multi-dimension to it. This is a really good shimmery neutral. If you don't know what to do, I think going in with Saddle on the lid is usually a really good go-to. What I would say though is be careful of fallout. This is the kind of palette where these shimmer shades, they're pretty soft to the touch. In fact, one of the shimmer shades, when I got it, was like almost popping out of the pan because they are so soft. So I think you just want to be careful of fallout. Maybe wet your brush. That has worked really well for me, or at least just tapping off your brush. You also can do your eyes first if you're going to be working with a lot of these glitters, but that's just kind of like a word of caution. With some of these more glittery duochrome formulas, you want to be careful so that it doesn't end up all over like the tops of your cheeks. Next, I went in with the gold shade, which is called Rodeo, and I applied that to the inner corner. Like I just said, some of these shades, they're more chunky glitter than they are like smooth metallic. This shade is actually a little bit too glittery for my taste to be putting in the inner corner. I think if you're going to be doing that, I would definitely wet my brush, or I'd go in with like a little bit of mixing medium or glitter glue just to start. Next, I started building up some color on the lower lash line by going in with Divot once again. Then I went in with the shade Bronco, which is that darker, deeper chocolate brown, and I started building up some more depth on the outer corner. Once again, like the mattes in this palette, they're very basic, so you kind of can't go wrong. You're not going to end up with anything like too crazy because you have a nice array of sort of lighter tans, browns, and a black. I then dipped into the shade Maine, which is that lighter beige bone shade. And I just like to use this shade to kind of blend everything out, soften everything up around the edges. Then I added some brown pencil liner. I did a little bit of a wing, and I used the color Stirrup, which is the black one there in the center. And I used a very tiny brush and just kind of used that black shadow to blend out the pencil liner to kind of soften it up, smoke it out, make it a little bit more sultry. Next, I went in with the mascara. So I want to show you guys what this looks like when I apply it. This really goes on thick in just one coat. I do apply 2 coats. I'm going to show you guys here what it looks like when I have 1 coat applied on one of my eyes and then nothing on the other. It's super volumizing. This mascara reminds me of, you know, like a Lancome Monsieur Big, something that has a lot of volumizing potential. If you want to do 2 coats, you definitely can. I'm more of like a 2-coat girl, but I love the way that the bristles really do just kind of like wrap around the lash, and it's really easy to apply and kind of get like that instant volume. And then lastly, moment of truth, I popped on the lipstick. Once again, I have the shade Buck, which is described as a golden chocolate. This surprised me because I was scared to go into this. I wasn't sure. I was like, this is either going to be super bomb or it's going to be absolutely awful, but it actually looks so pretty. And like it says on the website, kind of just depending on the light, the way that the light shines on your face, maybe the time of day, it does look a little bit different. It's such an interesting color and finish. I don't have anything like this in my collection. It even makes your lips look almost a little bit plumper because it kind of reflects the light with the glitter that's in there. It's not gritty. It really does feel like a balm. It's very moisturizing. It kind of glides onto the lips. It's the kind of lipstick where you don't need a mirror to apply this. Like, you can just pop this baby on, rub your lips together, and it's almost like putting on a chapstick or any of those like satin lipsticks that have come out this past year that have been super popular. It's very hydrating. I'll talk a little bit more about the formula and kind of the lasting power in my final thoughts. But guys, this is the final look, at least for look number 1. I thought this came out really nicely. I really like the way that Buck, the lipstick, looks with this kind of more chocolatey, sultry, you know, brown neutral kind of look, but this is still glam. It's still like a little bit elevated. I like the way that the shimmers look when they hit the light. Overall, I was really pleased with this look. Comment down below and let me know your thoughts. On to look number 2, I wanted to do something that was a little bit softer, maybe something that you might want to wear during the day, or if you're somebody that you don't really do anything too smoky or glam. And in the description of this collection, it said that Isamaya was sort of inspired by like old Western sunsets, you know, riding off into the sunset. So this look for me is kind of like a soft, ethereal, glitzy, old Western sunset. That's what I'm calling it. So let's dive in. First up, I started the look off the same way as the other one. I went into Divot and I just popped that in the crease. Then I went to the shade Canter. This one is a very soft and wearable duochrome. This is very much like one of the everyday shades that are in this palette. It's also not quite as glittery as some of the other ones that are in the palette. It has a lot of shimmer, but it's not quite as chunky, so I just popped that all over the lid. I love the fact that there's a little bit of gold sparkle in this shade. Then I dipped into the shade Dressage and I popped that on the lower lash line and also in the inner corner. This is the purple shade that is in the palette, and this shade, it's a little bit hard to pick up. It's definitely creamier and not as glittery as the other shades. I like the fact that it's softer because it does make it easier to make it wearable on like the lower lash line and the inner corner. That's kind of how I like to use this shade, but I will say I recommend going in with maybe like a flat synthetic brush, not a fluffy brush, because I think you're gonna have trouble picking this up just because it is a very creamy shade. Next, I dipped into that bright pink fuchsia shade, which is called Mare, and I applied that to the outer lid with a fluffy brush. I wanted to show you guys how this big bright fuchsia, it doesn't need to be scary. If you go in with a light fluffy brush, you can diffuse this out and it's not gonna make you look like you have pink eye. I think it blends really well with some of the other like softer colors that are in this palette. And lastly, I went into my favorite shade in the palette, which is the white duochrome that is called Whoa. And I put that on the center of the lid. Once again, I recommend just dampening your brush a little bit. You're gonna get more impact and it's also going to apply with no fallout. Just gives you a little bit of assurance there. Finally, I put on the mascara, and this is look number 2. Comment down below and let me know what you think. I posted this look to Instagram, and a lot of you guys responded and were telling me how much you liked it. So I was pretty happy with the way that this came out. Once again, like, this is just me playing with this palette, kind of doing what I would naturally do, you know, gravitating towards certain colors. So comment down below and let me know how you think I did. And finally, look number 3 is gonna be the look that I'm wearing today. I really wanted to play around with mixing more of the colorful shades and also really putting the matte black, which is called Stirrup, to the test. So for this look, I first dove into the blue shade, which is called Spur, and I just applied that to the lid with a flat brush. The formula of this shade is very similar to the purple that is in this palette. It has a more creamy consistency, so I think going in with like a flat synthetic brush, I'm using this one from the BK Beauty Angie Hot and Flashy line. I'll link it down below in case you guys want to pick this brush up. This kind of brush does the best job of picking up the product and really laying it on the lid. It has a really nice soft sheen to it, and like I said, like these colorful shades, they're softer than you think. So I wanted to really let this shade shine and put it all over the lid. Next, I went back into the purple shade, which is called Dressage, and I applied that once again to the lower lash line, similar to like I did in the other look. Then I popped into the shade Rodeo, and I started applying that on the inner half of the lid. I like the juxtaposition of blue and gold. I think it's a good way to kind of brighten up the eye and also let the blue pop a little bit more. I wanted to use Mare once again, so I dipped into that shade, the bright fuchsia, and I applied that to the lower lash line, but just in the center, just for like a little pop of pink. Then I really wanted to put the matte black to the test, so I dipped into the shade Stirrup, and using a pointy pencil brush, I applied that to the outer V, really just patiently building up this black. It is pretty pigmented. I think this is a pretty good matte black. I did have to just kind of go in as I normally do when I'm building up the color and slowly build it up and then kind of blend it out with a clean crease brush. So just kind of softening it up. I didn't want to completely let this color take over the look because I didn't want it to cover up the blue, but I think it does a pretty good job of smoking out any look that you would want to create with this palette. I also took a little bit of the matte black and I applied it just to the outer edge of the lower lash line because I wanted to sort of connect the smokiness that I did on the top to the bottom. And then finally, I had to go back into the shade Whoa. This is the perfect shade to just sort of end any look by dabbing it in the center of the eye, just to kind of mix together the blue and the gold. Love it. Then I went in with a liquid liner this time to get kind of a bit of a different look. I popped on the mascara, and this is the final look. Comment down below, friends. Let me know which look was your favorite. Do you think I pulled it off? Did I do a good job with these? I really wanted to just play with every single shade in this palette so I could be familiar with all of the textures. And yeah, I think all 3 of these looks are easily something that I would wear out in kind of my day-to-day, depending on what I was doing. Okay, friends, I hope that all of this has been helpful so far. Now it is time for my final thoughts. I'm gonna go through each of these products, break down kind of like the pros and cons. What do I like about them? What do I not like about them? And yeah, just let you know, do I recommend these? Do I think that they are worth the relatively high price tag? Let's start off with the eyeshadow palette. First up, the packaging. I like the packaging. I think that it is really cool. I think if you don't like the packaging, don't buy this collection. Like, part of why you should be buying it is because you think that the packaging is cool. The packaging is also what contributes to the high price tag. I see a lot of people on Instagram being like, oh my gosh, why is it so expensive, etc. I actually think that the price is like relatively reasonable considering what you're getting. All of the components for every single collection are completely unique. All of the shades, all of the formulas are unique. That is an incredibly expensive process. I'm pretty impressed that Isamaya is able to do this as kind of like a solo entrepreneur. I'm sure she has investors, etc. But that's a pretty hard thing to do straight out of the gate. When you think of like a Pat McGrath Mothership palette, she's reusing every single Mothership component and doesn't even put the names on the back. And those now retail for $128. So I think from like an industry standard perspective, the pricing makes sense considering the packaging. And personally, I like it. I think that, you know, it could be a little bit more weighty, but in general, it's nice. And I like the fact that you can pop out the eyeshadows and reuse this as, you know, a little tchotchke box or something. Now, let's talk about the formula. I think that the formula is good, but I like the formula in the industrial palette better. The formulas are kind of different between the two of them. Starting off with the mattes, I think the mattes are decent, but they could be better. They're not like the best, you know, luxury formula mattes that I have used, to be honest with you. I thought the black worked pretty nicely. That's always like the real test. Does the matte black work really well? And I do think that it does, but we haven't really seen anything spectacular from Isamaya when it comes to mattes in general. If you look at the industrial palette, that palette only has 2 mattes in it, and I can't tell the difference between them. Both of them look very black. They're just 2 black mattes. I don't really understand the difference between them. And then here, once again, we're getting very neutral mattes. We have not seen any like colorful mattes to complement the gorgeous colors that are in either of these palettes. I think in this palette, I would have liked at least one colorful matte to really kind of tie all of these colors together, whether it could have been a matte pink, a matte purple, a matte blue, something like that, some other color I think I would have liked in this palette. Now, when it comes to the shimmers, I think these are nice, but you have to be somebody that likes a glittery formula. Not all of the shimmers are super glittery, as I've mentioned a couple times throughout this review, but a fair amount of them are, and they can get messy very, very quickly. This is the kind of palette where it probably is best to do your eyes first, or make sure that you're being really careful, like wetting your brush, tapping off your brush, etc. I would say that these shadows, the glittery ones, they don't have the best longevity. They're gonna look absolutely beautiful and stunning on the eyes, but by the end of the day, when I was doing longer wear tests with these, I did have glitter like all over my cheeks by the end of the day, which I do get with other luxury palettes from other luxury brands. More on that in just a second. This is the kind of palette that I would wear if I'm like going out to dinner or I'm going out for a couple of hours. I'm not wearing it all day long because you are gonna get that fallout by the end of the day. I also think I would have appreciated like one shadow that was lighter in tone, almost like a highlight shade, but not super glittery, because pretty much all of the ones that we get in this palette that are of that tone are the more chunky, glittier type of formula. And so it doesn't leave me with a lot if I want to do kind of like that inner corner highlight, or if I want to sort of brighten up the lower lash line. So this is just me being super critical. This is my personal preference. I would have liked to swap out maybe one of the super glittery shades for something that was a little bit more of like a metallic foil. The color story is actually a lot more friendly than you think. It's certainly a lot friendlier for, I think, a lot of people compared to the industrial palette, which is very grungy. It's very dark. I think a lot of people, they don't want to wear greens and reds and blacks and gunmetal and that kind of stuff. So I think that this is a really nice, like fun, refreshing, like brighter juxtaposition to that collection. So I like the fact that she did something different, and that's good. But yeah, the color story, this really is just like a neutral palette with pops of color. As you saw from the demos, it's pretty easy to create a neutral look with this palette. You can always just use the neutral mattes to have a good base and then go in with any one shadow as your one shade and you're good. Like you can have a one and done situation, or maybe just a 2 shadow situation with this palette and create a pretty wearable look. That being said, for those of you out there that love like super pigmented indie brand types of eyeshadows, just a word of caution here. The shades that kind of stand out in the palette, the purple, the blue, and the pink, all 3 of these shades are a softer formula. They're more of that creamier formula. It's a little harder to pick up. Once you get it on the eye, it's really beautiful, but it's beautiful in a softer way. Let me just swatch the blue here. That's more of like a soft, icy blue. There's not as much of a base to that. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you were hoping for something that was gonna like really stand out as blue, which it does, it's gonna be a little bit softer. So I think some of you are really gonna enjoy that, and some of you might be a little bit disappointed. So I just wanna point these things out. Now, in terms of a formula comparison, what does this formula remind me of? 2 things came to mind. I'm gonna show them to you guys right here. For sure, this formula reminds me of the Patrick Ta formula. This is the Patrick Ta Major Dimensions Volume 2. I like this palette, but as I've said many times, like if you're new here, I've said this many times, this is a very glittery palette. If you don't like glitter, don't get this palette. A lot of people get this palette thinking it's gonna be very like everyday, and it is for people that like glittery shadows, but for me, it's the same situation where after, you know, maybe a full day of wear, I do have a lot of fallout, and I do have to be pretty careful when using the shimmers in this palette because they are very glittery. So I would say the mattes and the shimmers that are in the Isamaya palette very much remind me of the formula from Patrick Ta. The other formula that I thought of is the Huda Beauty. This is the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette, and this is kind of, you know, this is a little bit more colorful of a palette, but I was sort of reminded of this because it's kind of, it has a lot of neutrals, but then it also has those pops of color. Similar situation here where you have a couple of these shades that are softer and they're a little bit more glittery. And then some of the shades in here are a bit more smooth to the touch. If I were to compare formulas, I would say it's probably the closest, at least in my collection, to these two brands. So hopefully that is helpful for you guys when you're sort of deciding if this formula is going to be to your liking. So bottom line on this palette, I like it. I think it's a good palette, but if we're talking about the formula alone, I think it's a little bit overpriced. Like, this is not a super groundbreaking color story. It's a little bit finicky to work with. And overall, I like the industrial palette more. I put the industrial palette in my like top palettes of 2022 video. I don't think this one is probably going to make it into that. I think you need to think about whether or not you really love this color story. And most importantly, do you like this packaging? Like, do you want to collect this cool, kitschy, fun packaging? I'm not mad about it, but I do think that like $105, just kind of looking at the formula and the uniqueness of the color story, is a little bit high for me personally. Now let's talk about the mascara. I like this, but this isn't the style of mascara that I prefer. I prefer the style that she did for the industrial collection. If you are new here, I mostly wear tubing formulas. I would rather go for something that's very long lasting and maybe a little bit more lengthening over volumizing. That being said, I still think this is a really nice mascara. These style of mascaras, they don't last as long on me. So for me, it didn't have the most longevity. But that being said, like the Lancome mascaras, the Dior mascaras, the YSL mascaras, they don't last a lot on my lashes. So I want to put that out there. I think that the brush is really nice. It adds a lot of volume. It's easy to apply. If you are somebody that loves volumizing mascaras and you like the fact that you can get a ton of volume in just one swipe, I think you're gonna like this. And of course, like, the packaging is so cute. Do you need this though? Do you need this if you already have other volumizing mascaras? You probably don't. But if you're in the market for a volumizing mascara and you really like this collection and you really like the packaging, then I think it's worth picking up. And now for my favorite item of the collection, the lipstick. This was a pleasant surprise. I love this lipstick. I wasn't so sure when I opened it up, but I kind of love everything about this, especially because I don't have anything like this in my collection. And you know what, friends? I'm actually considering getting the other two colors because I like it that much. This is an incredibly comfortable formula. It glides across the lips. It feels like a balm. It does have a little bit of a transparent base, so it allows the natural color of your lips to shine through just a little bit. And I think that was very, very smart of Isamaya to make this a balm texture, because what we see from a lot of brands is that they'll usually make it more of like maybe a satin to matte, like a cream or a matte formula, because a lot of brands, they want like that metallic nature to really shine through. But the problem with that is that a lot of times that metallic texture, it emphasizes the lines of your lips. And I know a lot of folks don't really enjoy that. I like the fact that this is very moisturizing. You don't need a mirror to apply it. It's really quick. I just popped this in my handbag and I've just kind of been wearing it all week since I got the collection. And also because it has that slick balm-like texture, it doesn't feel gritty because it does have glitter in it. If I just go like this up to the light, you can see the glitter. Just sort of depending on how the light hits, it has a slightly different tone. And I think it also, because it has that glitter in it, it kind of plumps the lips a little bit as well. Like I said, I don't have anything like this in my collection. I was very pleasantly surprised. I love the cute little packaging. I love that I can kind of take this cute little horsey with me in my purse. I do think, just thinking of my subscribers at least, I think a lot of you are going to hate this. Like, if you don't like any kind of glitter or sparkle on the lips, or if you're just someone that you're a classic gal or guy, you like more of classic makeup, I don't think you're gonna like this. I'll just be honest. I think a lot of you guys are going to hate this, but if you like to try new things, if you want something a little bit different, if you don't mind a little bit of like sheen and sparkle to the lips, I think you're really gonna like this. So I wanna put that out there, but personally for me, this was my favorite part of the collection, and I am considering getting the other 2 shades. But this is expensive. These are $50, so that is pretty expensive, but for me, I think it's worth it because the packaging is so cool and it is very unique, whereas I'm not spending $50 on another like pale nude lipstick. So that is it, my friends. Those are all of my thoughts. In general, I think I prefer the industrial collection just a little bit more than this one, but I still thought this was a pretty good release. I'm excited to see what Isamaya comes out with in the future. If you want my main recommendation for what to pick up in this release, it would be one of the lipsticks. You know, go for whichever tone really speaks to you. The eyeshadow palette I think is really cool, but really only pick this up if you're really into the packaging and the color story speaks to you, and if you're somebody that really loves a lot of sparkle and glitter. But enough about what I think. I want to hear about what you all think. I know a lot of you picked this collection up and you're sort of waiting for this review because you just want to know what I think as well. And then some of you are kind of thinking, is this worth it? Should I pick it up? So I want to hear from all of you. Sound off in those comments down below and tell me everything that you think. If you like this video, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate that. I will be linking all of these products in that description box down below. And if you have not subscribed to my channel already, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button to join our fam. And if you are not sure, that's totally okay. Why don't you head on over to my channel page and you can check out some of the other videos and the other brands that I cover here on Sophia Sees Beauty. And with that, friends, I hope that you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you in my next one. Goodbye.